welcome to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. This is episode 10, and I'm your host, Robert Perry Cruz, with my fabulous co-hosts.
Hello, Rob. It's Diana.
And I'm here too. It's Jackie.
Hi, everyone. How y'all doing?
Great,
Good.
Rob.
Good. So today, for episode 10, we are going to be talking about picture activity schedules, or PAS, or PASS.
Oh, I've never called it pass.
No one has ever called it PASS.
Okay,
People
good.
do. I've heard it.
Who does?
Get that pass.
That would be really confusing.
I don't actually. I've never heard that before.
Okay.
Just
Unless
here.
it's a picture activity schedule to go on a hall pass,
Ooh, smart.
but
Oh,
I don't know
I
if
guess-
that research has been done.
No. We usually do the hall pass where we, fade ourselves out. So, we're
Right.
next to the kid, and then 10 feet behind, and then lurking behind corners like a creep, watching where they're going.
That's my favorite.
And then just pray they make it there for the rest of time. In any case, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about picture activity schedules. And we have 3 articles to discuss that are some pretty fun extensions to the literature of how to use picture activity schedules. So, before we get into the extensions, let's talk about what picture activity schedules is, in case perhaps a listener has never heard of them before. So, Diana, why don't you start us off? What is a picture activity schedule?
Okay, so picture activity schedules were first discussed in the literature by McDuff, Krantz, and McClanahan in 1993. And those names do remind me of the Golden Girls a little bit.
No, I know what you mean, yeah.
I would be Macduff.
Oh, yeah? Mm-hmm. I think McClanahan is really a name of the Golden Girls, which is why.
Rue McClanahan.
Yeah, that's
who played, why. The
Stella.
Rose.
who was the sex pot?
Blanche.
No, was it Blanche?
Blanche. Blanche is
Blanche.
a sex pot.
Okay, it was Blanche.
I just like to say Blanche.
Rue McClanahan played Blanche.
Yes.
B. Arthur played Dorothy, and Estelle Getty played Sophia,
that's her name.
and Betty White played
Rose.
Rose.
Oh, God.
And that's all the Golden Girls.
Nicely done.
Boom!
Yes.
Well, that was the Golden Girls podcast. The Golden Hour, I call it.
I think
All right.
there actually is one called that.
Damn it.
I'm
All right,
sure
back to
there's
this
already
ABA
Golden
garbage.
Girls. Yeah.
Podcast. If you have one you listen to on The Simpsons, then there's definitely one on the Golden Girls.
Right.
All right, well, I will have to make my
That
living
niche has been filled.
on ABA. All right, back to picture activity
Okay,
schedules.
these folks were looking at picture activity schedules to teach leisure skills to preteen boys, I want to say. Traditionally, those schedules are about 3 to 5 activities long. They're set up usually in a little binder with a picture on each page. And it's just taught as a behavior chain in which children are taught to, turn to a particular page, point to the picture, go get the leisure activity schedule. Go get the leisure activity to complete, do that activity when it's completed, either by it being sort of a finite activity that has a clear end, or sometimes it can be tied into a timer where you just set the timer and then have it go off in the activity. Then turning the page, looking at the next picture, pointing to it, and getting that activity as well. So the great thing about picture schedules is that they can really increase independent leisure activity for individuals for whom that might be a difficult task, and also increase really the overall length that a child can remain engaged independently with a whole variety of different activities. So they can be really helpful both in school and during perhaps downtime, and really helping in adding some structure to perhaps times when we need children to be able to be engaged independently, or when perhaps their families need them to be engaged independently. So
Like
they can be a
dinner
really
time.
useful skill
Cooking dinner
to
time.
have.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Literature has also extended this over to looking at morning schedules or evening schedules, vocational tasks, and some other things we're going to talk about today, which are more varied types of play and peer interaction.
Great. All right, so let's get into that research. So we have 3 articles that we're going to talk about this week. The first is Betz, Higbee, and Reagon from 2008 in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis, using joint activity schedules to promote peer engagement in preschoolers with autism. And Jackie, you are going to lead us through this. So lay on, McDuff. Oh, hey, that was a research article. And a quote from Shakespeare.
Whoa.
The Scottish play.
I thought you were making a reference to the Golden Girls podcast called On the Linnae, a Golden Girls podcast. I just looked it up.
What's it called?
It's
There
called
is one.
On
There's
the
a Golden
Linnae.
Girls podcast.
Oh, on the Linnae.
Yeah.
Oh my
A Golden
goodness.
Girls
I've
podcast.
forgotten that word existed.
Now you know.
My neighbors had a lanai.
I've never had one.
It's like a little, like, garden
porch.
with walls.
Side porch.
Theirs had walls.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Side porch
Yeah.
with walls.
One time when we were at Disney World, it's the Hollywood Studios now, but we went and they had like a backlot tour, and they're like, look over there, it's the Golden Girls house, which is not a real house at all. It is just the front of a house that they built to look like a house,
Cool.
and it was such a sad. I thought there was
that
like
really
a
brought
real
you
house
down?
in Florida you could go to, but no,
Boo.
it's just a set.
Okay, well, I guess you could have used this idea of a activity schedule to increase your social skills at telling your disappointment of the crew manager that gave you that tour, how disappointed you were.
That was a
I tried.
valiant segue effort, Jackie.
Segue! Previous research has also looked at using picture activity schedules to increase interactions with individuals diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder. But typically, previous research has used just a picture activity schedule for the child diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder, but not for the other peer. So the other peer was just available to talk, but didn't necessarily participate in the picture activity schedule. To date, no research studies have been published when this study was published to look at members of a social pair following the same activity schedule. So the purpose of the current study was to see if this joint activity schedule would have the same benefits of an independent activity schedule. And what they're really looking for is if they can increase independence, decrease the need for adult prompts, and promote peer engagement in activities such as like turn taking and cooperative play. And I think this is kind of neat too, because I think picture activity schedules in this sense with a joint peer could be really helpful and incorporated into mainstream classrooms without a lot of stigmatization. That's a hard word for me. And also, it's less intrusive than having like an adult stand behind the kid at all times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is great. It's like a really fun application.
I think
to do
so.
game playing.
So they had 3 dyads of preschool children. All of them were 4 and 5. They all had a diagnosis of an autism spectrum disorder and were all receiving intensive behavioral interventions. They had a lot going on for them, these kids. Mm-hmm. They were fluent followers of independent activity schedules. They could select their own activities from a choice board. They could play all the games already, which is kind of big deal.
Including Don't Break the Ice,
Right,
which
that's
is
hard.
impossible to set up for adults.
And they had to be able to set it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to go over the games that they played, but there were some... When I read them, I was like, I love all of these games.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of hard to set up. Especially Don't Break the Ice.
Oh, jeez.
Woo! They had sessions that were 20 minutes in length, and they had the joint schedule for each participant, and the data collector just said, okay, go play. And then they had 6 interactive games concurrently available. So they had Don't Break the Ice.
Mm-hmm.
So fun.
Yeah.
And every time I hear that, I'm like, don't break the ice, because that was the commercial.
The game that takes 5 times as long to set up as it does to play.
Oh, most definitely.
Right.
Sometimes you only get 3 turns.
All right, now hit 1 ice cube at a time. Oh, you just bashed it. Oh, you just bashed the little thing in. Okay.
There we go.
You're the worst. Do you have that game?
No,
Oh.
not currently.
All right, Christmas. Hungry Hippos.
Yep.
So fun.
I have that one. It's right
I know
over
you
there.
do.
We have
played
that.
it. Don't Spill the Beans, which also kind of takes a long time to set up because you have to make sure that the pot is perfectly balanced so that the beans don't fall out immediately. And Crocodile Dentist, which is so fun if you've never played it. It's a crocodile and there's teeth in it and you have to pull out the teeth, and you have to pull out the teeth without the crocodile biting you.
Yes. That one requires no setup.
No.
So that's nice.
Well, putting the teeth back in.
Oh, the version I had, you just push the teeth down.
Oh.
That's what I remember.
Oh,
playing.
maybe I had the super ghetto version.
Yeah, like super old. And then they stopped
Probably
making
the
that.
dollar store version.
They stopped making that game for a while. And now it's back. And then it was just a travel version.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like I saw a full-size version last year again. It's perfect for turn taking because it requires no setup. Your turn takes 1 second.
Yeah.
And you can practice it unless the kid is really scared about getting their hand chomped.
Pop-up Pirate, I would say, is a good alternative. If you cannot
Pirate's
find
super awesome.
Crocodile
It's
Dentist.
also not in production any longer. You ever played Pop-Up Pirate, Jackie?
No.
There's a barrel, and many different little cutlass-type swords, right? And you take turns putting the swords in the slots in the barrel, and one of the slots will trigger the little pirate who's in the middle of the barrel pop out.
Oh god, that sounds scary and awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's super cute.
I thought you were gonna say that one of the swords pierced the pirate in the barrel and then blood seeped out.
No, that would be
less child friendly.
That would be a different game.
No, he's just like, ooh,
that's
out.
better.
Yeah, it's really cute. Also,
Cool.
the turn takes 1 second.
Yeah.
Right. So, before they actually ran the joint activity schedule, the adult instructor taught each child how to play appropriately with all of the games, and all of the participants demonstrated proficiency with the games at the beginning of the research. So that's kind of awesome, just in general.
Yeah.
That all of those kids could play those games.
Yes.
So they could, and it was proficient when they could complete the game with no prompts to take turns, follow the rules, and set up and clean up the game. So that's, pretty significant.
Yeah. These kids were functioning pretty independently already.
Yeah. So that's just a good thing to note when we're talking about these results, right? So in baseline, the joint activity schedule was not present, and there was no prompts given. So they were just saying, all right, go play, and nothing happened. During teaching, a joint photographic activity schedule was displayed in the 3-ring binder for each dyad. Each schedule book contained 2 pre-chosen activity schedules, followed by 2 choice pages. So you got one that you have to do, one that you can choose to do. And then each member of the dyads was responsible for a choice page and a pre-chosen page. So their little picture would be on the top of the page, and that would indicate that it was their turn to either pick the game or go get the game and set it up. And then the 2 would play.
Yeah.
Which is kind of neat.
I know, I liked that.
And they also had scripts on the bottom of the page, so it was their picture, the picture of the game they had to choose, or a Velcro square where they could put the picture of the game that they chose.
Right.
And then the script, let's play whatever.
But not Velcro, Jackie. Hook and loop dot. Oh. I put quotes around that.
Hook and loop
It's
dot.
just, a generic hook and loop like you find.
Yeah, they didn't want to put Velcro.
We don't know what brand it is. Just hook and loop.
They didn't want to put Velcro. TM.
Yeah, right.
But the nice thing about the scripts is that they were systematically faded from back to front.
Yeah,
by
for everyone
removing a
except
word.
one.
One participant.
Still needed them.
Yeah.
But that's pretty impressive, too. It's like going above and beyond.
Right. So it's important to note that during the teaching session, the schedule pages remained in the same order with the same pre-chosen activities for each participant.
I also wondered if they always picked the same game when it was their turn to pick.
They don't tell us.
Yeah, they don't say.
I wonder
Just curious.
Though. Yeah. They also did a maintenance session. The instructors were present but remained far away from the participants. Prompts to engage were only provided if the participants did not initiate play within 5 seconds or did some bad behavior such as self-injury or aggression. Then they did resequencing, which I'm super glad they did because I think sometimes joint activity schedules or picture activity schedules forget to do this resequencing.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
You always have to change it up.
Right.
Yeah.
So they changed it up to see if anything would happen, and this would demonstrate that the specific sequence of the activities was not controlling the student responding. So I think that's great. And then they did a generalization phase where they had 2 of the original games were rotated, and then there was 4 novel games. They don't tell us what those 4 novel games were. I wish they did. And
oh, yeah, they don't. Yeah.
I was like, well,
Connect 4 has to be one of these games.
Connect 4, I'm hoping Chutes and Ladders maybe.
Oh, God.
Candyland, like one of the long ones.
I don't know.
Cootie,
Those are really
a little
long.
bug. You build a little
Oh, I
bug.
Cooties
love
is
that
fun.
one. Cooties is fun, not in production anymore.
What?
Did that company go out of business, or?
Cootie? Really?
Because they made Cootie,
so.
they made Don't Spill the
Because they're
Beans,
also
Don't Break the
chokeable.
Ice.
So deliciously
Yeah.
chokeable.
They are so delicious.
What about Ants and Pants?
Ooh, that's fun.
That's a good
Yep.
one.
Yeah. So all of these could have been there.
Yeah.
But we don't know. And I also wondered if they actually taught the novel games, or if the novel games were, like, truly novel games.
And the kids just had to figure them out for themselves.
Yeah, I wonder. But probably not.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be too dissimilar. I mean, even with typically developing kids, I'm like, here's a game. Instructions in the box.
Good luck. Figure it out.
Preschoolers who can't read.
That's funny. But let me tell you about the results. So there were 3 dyads, Allie and Dylan, Brady and David, and Nathan and Jackson. When I thought of Nathan and Jackson, I'm not sure why, but I thought instantly of Dawson's Creek. Not sure why, because neither of those characters are in
Right.
Dawson's Creek.
No.
Casey and
Pacey, Joey, and
Dawson.
Dawson.
I don't know why I thought of
Dawson.
those, but...
And Michelle Williams' character.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember her name, but that's okay. They did a non-concurrent multiple baseline design, and they showed on the graph total percentage of intervals where there was engagement and where there was prompted responses. And during baseline, there was very low levels of engagement, with the exception of 2 data points, around 50%. For Brady and David had 1 point, and Nathan and Jackson had 1 point. Then they did a scheduled probe for 2 sets of participants and still saw low rates. Oh no, 3. I just saw that one. They still saw low rates of engagement, but then once teaching was implemented, they saw high rates of engagement in an increasing trend to really high levels, and prompted responses decreased to lowish levels. And then during maintenance, everyone was fairly high. During generals, resequencing, 2 of the 3 participants maintained high engagement, with the exception of Nathan and Jackson. They saw an immediate decreasing trend, so they had to implement the prompts again for them.
And I think it was Jackson.
Yeah.
Specifically, they said. So he must have been he had sort of memorized the order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did manual prompts for him.
It's funny that Nathan, the fact that there were 2 of them together, Nathan didn't somehow cue Jackson at all. I mean, even given the structure of the schedule, you think if he was completely independent, he would have.
If it's which one? Jackson's turn, and he just goes and gets whatever has been game number 1 and brings it back. Well, Nathan's probably not going to tell him that doesn't match the picture. He's just going to play the game.
Maybe, I don't know. I'd be curious to actually have seen what his responses were.
Yeah.
Because preschoolers get very rule focused. Even one's this high functioning.
Jackson was.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little too rule focused.
But
I thought it was really neat that they graphed their data as a dyad together.
Yeah,
me
too,
it was like
actually.
all or nothing. Both people had to be doing the right thing.
which makes sense, because why would you have a joint activity schedule if both people weren't doing the right thing?
Yeah, but in some of our other studies, they're graphed separately.
Right. But I like that.
I did too.
I also wish they would have included a table, though, so that we could have seen the individual results as well. But
Yeah.
that's just me being nitpicky.
And of what games they actually played.
Right. Yeah. Maybe they picked the same chosen games each time.
I just want to know for turn-taking purposes,
Right.
like, what were these awesome games?
Right.
And yeah, did they pick the same ones each time?
Right. So, one nice thing is that all of the dyads did learn to engage independently with the joint activity schedule, and 2 of the 3 dyads maintained high levels of peer engagement when they resequenced and when new activities were introduced. So, kind of cool. The authors do suggest, though, that they're not sure why it worked,
Right.
which I appreciate. I like it when people don't like, oh, it's this.
Yeah.
When they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciated that a lot. So it could have been due to stimulus control, but when the resequencing happened, we didn't see that, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
And they also point out that they did not add any additional reinforcers.
Right. So they presumed the activities were reinforcing in and of themselves.
They probably were.
They probably were,
I mean,
like-
they're fun kids' games, and
Yeah.
these kids seemed pretty with it.
Yeah, don't break the ice is awesome.
Yeah.
If you play it correctly.
Right. We don't hog the hammer.
Right.
Or just bash it in one.
That's true.
And then get obsessed. Oh, they're not all broken at the same time.
One limitation, though, that I want to point out, too, is that all the participants could already engage in independent activity schedules and had really extensive verbal repertoires. So I think that's going to mediate how well they did.
Definitely. Yeah.
I don't think these results would show generality with lower functioning kids that maybe don't do as well with even an independent activity schedule, or if they haven't even mastered the turn-taking, following rules and games.
Exactly. This is the type of schedule you want to put in place for kids for whom you see probably great independent solitary play, but you're not seeing peer interaction.
Right.
This is a great place to start.
Or they have repetitive. They'll play with peers, but it's the same games,
Right,
it's the
yeah.
same
Right.
scripts.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if they stayed with the scripts, so if it was like they said the same thing with the scripts, or if they deviated from any like novel statements.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
That
don't
would
get
be
any
interesting.
info on that.
No.
No.
The next study, they did talk a little bit about anecdotally. Sometimes the kids would say different things,
Yeah.
but
Right.
they didn't take any data on that.
Higbee's the author of both of them, so he was like, I bet he thought of that too.
Yes. All three.
Oh,
He
we're
likes
fans today.
he likes these schedules.
Yeah.
We did one of these
totally fans.
in one of the classrooms that I consult to, but it was a higher functioning classroom. It's sort of our kindergarten full inclusion readiness classroom, and not every child had a diagnosis of autism, but they just had language delay or high rates of challenging behavior. So we do some joint activity schedules, and I remember one of our groups, we had some dyads and we had a triad at one point too, because the kids just like playing together. But there was one child who definitely had a diagnosis of autism, and he loved the schedule. He was very rule following. So I have this great clip I use for training, where the one child is sort of just like staring at the schedule, he's like looking through the schedule for the thing he wants to play, and then the child with autism comes over and he's like prompting the other kid to go to the first one, and he's getting all the materials. I think the other kid just didn't really want to play very much, and so
Yeah.
he's like prompting him along, and then finally they all kind of started following the schedule. But we
That's
didn't
funny.
we didn't really replicate this perfectly, and I think I was on vacation or I was sick a few days, and when I came back, the teacher said, "Oh, I don't know, I just gave them one schedule," and because they practiced picture activity schedules, they could all do them independently. They could do choice with schedules. They could set their own timer for schedules. And she said, "I don't know, I just gave them one schedule and said, you guys go play," and they just sort of, that's what they did. They just all found the items and they all interacted pretty well, and they'd all chat with each other when they were doing it. But
That's pretty funny.
yeah, I don't know how generalizable it is, given that it was not a population of children who were so limited in play. Only one or two of them
Right.
really had a hard time with independent play not becoming repetitive.
Huh.
But it was cool.
That sounds fun.
It was cool to use.
Well, if they have a difficult time staying on task or picking novel activities to do, then it would still be probably pretty functional.
That was more why we used it. They're little boys obsessed with cars. So just cars. Drive the cars back and forth. And they'd talk about what they were doing, and it was always different, but it was sort of within the wheelhouse of
Yeah.
cars
Always
going
came
here,
back to
cars
cars.
going
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, that might be a good extension.
Cool.
I like schedules.
Oh, is that the game that you made up? I mean, the song you made up?
No.
You should sing it to us right now before we talk about your article.
Okay, well, I thought of it when I realized that Tom Higbee was the author on all of these different articles, and my song was picture schedules, lots of fun with picture schedules. You can have Tom Higbee do a picture schedule with you.
Oh,
Very good.
That's good.
So clever.
Thanks, man.
I hope that he calls you and asks to copyright that. My turn.
He
That's
probably
Tom.
can't. He probably can't,
Oh,
because that's the Picture Pages song.
I know.
no.
It's a parody, I mean.
It's parody, so you can use it all you want.
You can still use it. I hope he uses it in his class.
It's good if you guys need me to record that more professionally, just let me know.
No, that's okay. I think we got it.
That's a wrap.
I think we got it. So, Diana, the next article we're going to talk about, or you are going to talk to us about, is Broadhead, Higbee, there he is again, Pollard, Akers, and Garanscher from JABA 2014, the use of linked activity schedules to teach children with autism to play hide and seek. Now, I saw Tom Higbee at Babbitt, it was like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and he talked about picture schedules, which is where I actually had originally heard about this research. And if you ever get a chance to see him, I don't know if he's still doing this talk, but if you ever have a chance to see him doing picture activity schedule talk, you really should. Even if the research themselves seems pretty explanatory from reading the articles, because he brought video clips, and nothing explains how to do these better than watching the footage of the little kids running around and looking at their schedules and playing hide and seek and building a tower or whatever they had to do in their joint schedule together. It's very fun to see.
That's awesome.
It made the whole thing make a lot more sense in terms of understanding the verbal description or the textual
Did they
description.
really seek out
Yeah,
the other kids?
they would go and look for them. Because they had on their page, they'd have the two choices of where should I go look, and
Yeah.
they'd go to the first one, and the kid's not there, and they go to the next one,
Okay,
and
but
there
they
they
really
were.
got it? Because that's what you can't really tell from this, is like how much did the kids understand that this was a game.
Yes, it was very much that. It was two children playing a nice game of hide and seek with a ton of visual support.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really
It's
cute. So yes, if you ever get a chance to see Tom Higbee do his talk on picture schedules, you should check it out for the movie clips. Just the movie clips alone really sell it. But he was also very fun to listen to describe the genesis of some of this research.
Nothing beats a movie clip.
I looked on YouTube earlier today to see if I could find any of his video clips online, and they're not there.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay, well, people will have to do with our retelling, I guess. All right, so I'm going to talk to you guys about this article in which they use picture activity schedules, linked picture activity schedules, in which each child had a schedule that were complement of one another
Mm-hmm.
to play hide and seek.
Yay.
And I chose to go over this article because I really liked Matthew Broadhead's name, and I feel like he should be knighted. It's like, I really want to say Sir Matthew Broadhead.
Ooh.
Right? It really lends itself to
Diana
that. So Matthew,
Broadhead.
see what you can do. So in this study, there were 6 participants. They were all aged between 3 and 5 years. 3 boys and 3 girls, actually. And like I said, they had 2 picture schedules, one for each child in the dyad. There were 3 dyads in this study as well. And within each picture schedule, they took turns being the hider and the seeker. And like you said, Rob, it was really set up with a lot of visual supports for them. And they did it in such a really cool way and so innovative, I thought. So they had the pages laid out and they were color-coded. So if the child was the hider, then their page was colored blue. And on that page, there was a picture of the place where they were going to go hide and the words, "Oh no." So when it was their turn, and each book had both. So it was set up in such a way where each child would have a chance to be the hider 2 times and the seeker 2 times. So in order to finish the book, you played hide and seek 4 times altogether. So when they opened the book and they saw that they had the hider page, they would see where they needed to go hide and then see the words "Oh no." They would take the "Oh no" textual prompt off the page, and they had a little watch on with a Velcro. And in this study, Jackie, they actually did use the word Velcro.
Oh, good.
So it was okay. By 2014,
They got
decided
more. They
that
got a
was
grant. They got a
fine.
grant passed.
Maybe. So they were able to. They took the little "Oh no" text prompt and put it on their watch as like a text prompt that they could bring with them.
I love the idea.
Right?
I think we talked about script fading. I think it was a journal club way back when, where everyone was kind of down on the script fading, like, oh, you got to carry these things around.
Yeah.
This isn't the most efficient. But then you think about it, you throw that little Velcro on, and it's your visual cue comes with you. I had a student working on social skills and just like trying to pay attention to the rules, and he just would forget about them. He just sort of forget them and sort of go about his merry way. And he wasn't being malicious. They left his head when there weren't cues that were super easy to pay attention to. And I was talking to one of the school psychologists. Said, why don't you try a Velcro strip around their wrist? And a hook and loop strip around their wrist. And you could put some sort of a visual cue and see if they pick it up or something they could keep looking at, because he's the type that if you had to watch would kind of keep looking at it. And I just love that idea of having this basic thing going around with you that just sort of reminds you, hey, don't forget. Say "Oh no," or say "I found you."
Yeah,
or
I love it. I think
to
it's
20.
such a great idea. I've seen that done for perseveration, where kids could have like not on their wrist, but on like a lanyard in their pocket, like a little sort of like perseveration paragraph, where if they're having a difficult time, they could sort of read that paragraph and it would be done, which is another maybe way to carry words around with you. But I loved the idea of the watch. It was really cool.
Yeah.
So that made me so excited about this study. So for the hider, they would, again, put that little "Oh no" textual prompt on their wrist and then go hide. And the other partner would open their book, see that they had a green page. Their first cue was to verbally state, "Go hide." That was written in the book. And then it had written out the numbers up to 20, so they would count to 20. And then they had 2 picture options, where to look for the child, their partner. And then they had a textual prompt that they could take off and put on their wrist that said, "I found you." So they would tell the other one to go hide, count to 20, either by verbally stating it or by touching the different numbers, depending on the child and their communication method. And then they could pick which place they looked first, but they could go look, and then when they found them, they would use their textual prompt to say, "I found you." I love it. I think it was an awesome idea. I will say that before they went into training the schedule, they did initial picture to location training to make sure the kids knew where all the different locations were.
Right.
And they were locations in the classroom and in the hallway and then in a nearby office. So they were all, not too far away as well.
And there's also a picture so you can see what the activity schedule looked like.
Yeah, everyone should check that out. And, when you print it out, it's, of course, in black and white. But if you look it up online, then you can actually see the pictures in color of what the picture schedule looked like, which was a nice touch as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know, it's really cute. And then they also had pre-learned the game statement. So, like, go hide, I found you, things like that. To look at the results, the results graph, unfortunately, is really small in this article.
It is super small. It's like in the quarter, it's like quarter of the page.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is, a brief report, but that's the sacrifice I guess you make, is that then your graph is super tiny. So it was a little hard to read.
They spent all their money on the Velcro. They didn't have enough money for, blown up printing.
I guess so. Well, they probably had to decide whether they put in the pictures of the of the pages.
Or the
and
graph.
I'm actually glad, Matthew Broadhead, that you decided to put in the pictures of the pages.
Me too.
Even though the graph is a little small. We can still make it out. That's all we needed to do.
And it's what you would expect, I think, from other picture activity schedule research graphs, which all kind of have that same look of, not so good, oh, really good, take it away, not so good again.
Yep, you just summarized the results.
Yeah, very, very precisely and with
you sure did.
Great aplomb, I think.
Professor
is what they called me.
So I'll go into a slight bit more detail, but honestly, not too much, because that is exactly what happened. So we had 3 dyads, Arlo and Isis, Brad,
Dog names. That's what I instantly said when I saw that.
They're cool names, but you are right. They could be potentially
really great.
All the grad student dogs, and then put their names in.
Yeah, right.
You can name kids that too, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Isis?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Well,
this was only 2 years ago, but still,
right.
Things have changed in 2 years.
Yeah. Remember the dog in Downton Abbey was called Isis? And then they had to kill him off.
What? They really?
Mm-hmm.
You don't watch that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Nope,
they killed
I know.
him off.
Oh, man.
They killed the dog. It was really sad. I cried so hard. Like, it was hilarious how hard I cried.
Well, Isis is a
It's
Egyptian,
an Egyptian god.
dog.
Yeah.
God. Right?
Dog god.
Whoa. Dog and God, think about it.
What?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Anubis.
That is also an Egyptian god.
What's happening? Okay.
It's Egyptian
Arlo
goddess.
is a killer name.
Arlo?
I would love to meet a little boy named Arlo. I know these are just pretend names.
I know, yeah.
Anyway, Arlo and Isis, Brad and Michelle.
Are not good dog names.
Comments on that? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Come here, Michelle. That seems silly.
Yeah, that's no.
No, those are like Dawson's Creek names.
Right, yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Gus and Olivia.
Gus is a good dog name. Olivia would be weirdo, but we
These
could,
are
we
like
could do it.
names of people in children's books.
Or like hipster kid names.
Yeah. Okay, so those are the 3 pairs, and results looked really quite strikingly similar for all 3 pairs. What we have here is percentage of correct responses, and we do have separate data paths for each of the participants because they each had their own schedule to follow and each had independent responses that they were looking at. So baseline for all 3 dyads was at absolute 0. They did an initial
Which is
probe.
kind of amazing. They were like, nope.
Yeah, nope. And it was a multiple baseline, non-concurrent multiple baseline as well.
I find it hard to believe it was absolute 0. I mean, have they never been exposed to hide and seek ever? Where they just go hide and seek. What? You heard me.
Yep,
You got
that
10
was what
minutes.
they did for the baseline. Yes, that was exactly what they did.
You heard me. I like that.
No, they probably never played before.
Then, it is a real baseline, but at the same time, that does leave the question, what if you'd shown them how to play hide and seek? Just taught them, hey kids, watch me, let's play this game together. Would it have worked?
That is a great question that is unanswered by this data set.
Well, they did teach them each of their responses. So theoretically, even though they hadn't combined all the responses, they knew all the target responses.
So they might have been, so you're saying they couldn't play it even if you'd shown them, or they might have been able to?
No,
because,
they might have been able to, because they knew everything already.
Yeah, that's true. They did a lot of pre-teaching for like the pieces,
Yeah.
the components of the game.
I mean, they do. It is mentioned in the back. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but it is mentioned in the discussion section that, or the results/discussion section, that they extension should definitely be looking at how does a linked schedule compare to other types of training, including social stories and
Right.
video modeling. They do not mention just kind of showing the kids, but I guess that would be the closest to,
That would be
to
in
video
vivo
modeling. In
Right.
vivo modeling.
Or in situ.
Ooh, yeah.
Bless you. Boom.
I already sneezed once today.
Once is all you get. All right. They then did an initial probe with the picture schedule. Again, they did not see responding. For all 3 dyad pairs, responding increased to between 80 and 100% when teaching was implemented. They then also did resequencing, which was changing the location, and that worked really well for all 3 sets. They then did a no-schedule probe, in which they said, again, what did they say, Rob?
Here's your schedule. Play hide and seek.
No,
they took the schedule. Sorry, they took the schedule away.
They just said
play hide and seek.
What?
You heard me.
You heard me.
All right. Responding immediately decreased to 0.
I found that to be shocking.
Not
that they
for me.
just
No.
they just nothing. I mean, were they tired of playing hide and seek at that point?
No,
No,
because they then re-implemented the picture schedule with novel locations, and responding immediately increased back to 80 to 100%.
But are we talking about the difference between this schedule is serving as a cue, is a discriminative stimulus? So I'm going to play hide and seek when the schedule is there. If it is not there, I just don't care to play this game because I don't find it reinforcing, so I would never choose to do hide and seek.
That is an interesting point.
Versus just, I don't know how to play without this schedule, so
Right.
there's no schedule here, so playing hide and seek won't get me any reinforcement, or there's no signal about reinforcement, and I don't like hide and seek.
We don't know if they like it or not, but we do know
Yeah.
that it is possible that the absence of the schedule signaled the unavailability of reinforcement, right?
No.
So we don't know if they don't like it or not, but we do know that the schedule itself was a fairly salient cue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the things they mentioned that they did during the no-schedule probe phase included crawling on the floor and refusing to play with the other participant.
So maybe they didn't like each other.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah. Crawling on the floor.
You guys got to work together. It's the only way to finish your schedule.
I mean, you do bring up a good point, Rob, is one would think that they likely had learned some components.
Yeah, they would at least go hide. Like, they both go hide, or,
Count to 20.
They'd both just start running around and trying to find each other, or being like, I found you, even though they didn't go anywhere. Something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Chances are these kids were pretty schedule maintained.
Yeah.
So that was the big limitation here, was really that you removed the schedule, you didn't see responding maintain. They also did not take procedural integrity data.
Boo! But it's okay.
Or data on fading the prompts that they used, because this was a dynamic process. That's what
that
they
does
talked
make
about.
sense.
I know.
That's more difficult.
Pretty challenging
Yeah.
to fade out. And like you said, Rob, they also listed as their last sentence, and I know this is a brief report, so they didn't have a lot of room to discuss things in depth, but future researchers may examine strategies to establish gameplay itself as a reinforcing activity.
Right.
Which is a really big last statement
Like,
to
what?
leave there. Like, oh yeah, we probably should work on that. So there's definitely room for growth in this area.
Right.
You know, you'd like to see being able to fade out that schedule in some way. Maybe if they had additional time, they could move it to just like a visual list or something like that, or some type of smaller cues, or make the entire schedule something that's portable on your bracelet, perhaps, with some really small pictures or cues that would make it a little easier.
Yeah, or what are the cues that signal the actions that, what are the key components of it? If you just see the numbers, are you able to still count to 20 without actually having every single number out there?
Right.
If you just see hide, or you learn the word hide associated with the picture, will you just go find a place to hide? I'd be curious.
But that still doesn't get at what you're talking about, which is whether this activity is reinforcing at all, or something that children would ever prefer to do on their own. And if you can't capture that, then they're extremely unlikely to ever do this without an adult telling them to.
Yeah.
Whereas in your study, Jackie, it seemed as though those games might actually be fun for them. I don't know if that's the case here.
Yeah.
But it's a really cool study, and I loved the way that they made that schedule more portable for them, and those textual prompts were portable. So to me, that was really neat application.
Excellent. before we go on to our last article, I just wanted to let folks who are listening and would like to apply for CEs for listening to know the first secret code word of the evening. And that is sunglasses. You might wear them in the morning or wear them at night. Sunglasses.
I wear mine at night.
I don't even own any.
I just got a pair as a present. It's very nice. So, let's move on to our last article of the show.
Awkward transition. That was awesome.
You like that? That was good.
So,
the last article we're going to discuss is Akers, Higbee, Pollard, Pellegrino, and Garanser from the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis in 2016. An evaluation of photographic activity schedules to increase independent playground skills in young children with autism. And I will be talking about this article.
what?
I know. I don't talk about articles in detail very much. I mostly just summarize them to other teachers and staff and sort of, synthesize them into my own practice. So please bear with me as I stumble through this process. Because it's been a while.
You're going to do great.
Oh, you say now. So this is certainly one of those studies that I think we've all had that idea. Like, wait a minute, if we just use picture activity schedules on the playground, the kids will stop climbing the slide or running around. And I think they even put in here, throwing the wood chips around.
The wood chips.
I love
Always
those
the wood chips.
So when it seemed like this was the second study that had used picture activity schedules in the context of recess, that seems very shocking to me that nobody had just sort of done that. Seems like a real gimme.
Well, we used to use them.
Yeah, I learned my first year or my second year, I think, working. Someone was, oh, look, you can use the schedule and have the kids go down the slide and go do these activities.
Yeah, but who knew that no one had
Experimentally manipulated it.
Yeah.
Thank you, exactly.
Well,
Crazy.
in any case, this is one of the few studies in which they looked at the phenomenon of picture schedules. And the idea was looking at increasing appropriate play activities for children with autism spectrum disorder in the playground. So this was sort of interesting for looking at both would this work and what were some of the logistics of using the schedule, because I know when I suggest it to teachers, they say, that's hard, kids should play. And then also to look at some of the generalizability of picture schedules from settings.
That's
between
not a
settings.
word.
Generalize it. What is it? It's generalization?
Yeah.
Okay. Is generalizability not a word ever, or
No.
just not a word in this context?
I don't think it's a word.
I don't think that's a word.
Well, it is now. I
It's
just
either
made it up.
generalization
Boom.
or generality.
Yeah, but generality is something different.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
use generality.
We're not talking about that.
No, generalization.
Yeah.
Why can't I say generalizability then?
Because that's a fake word.
I just made it up. It's an important word. It's copyright me now.
Okay, do it.
That's fine.
You got this.
No one can use that word now. It's just for me. So when I say it, it's fine.
Errata next week. Just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Forecasting.
The participants in this study were three preschool-age boys with autism. They're Miles, Alvin, and Dexter.
Great names.
Now, similar
Jazz names.
Yeah.
Similar to our other studies, they all were able to follow schedules already when the study began in the context of the classroom. They did not play very well outside. They mostly engaged in stereotypic or repetitive movements. For example, playing in the wood chips, which I'm sure we've all seen happen
fun.
before.
Yeah.
Hey, aren't you going to prompt that kid to play? Billy, go play. What? You heard me.
Like just walking along the fence.
Yeah, just
Like hugging the fence. Or yeah, like
playing with your fingers against
yeah,
the
like
Yeah.
brushing the fence.
Or chasing a group of kids, and then when they stop running, chasing a different group of kids.
Well, that's at least an attempt to stay near kids.
It's certainly fine, but when people come and say, you should look at all the playing they're doing, I'm like, that kid's just running back and forth.
Yeah.
It's not, that was great last week, but it's not moving anywhere. Gotta actually, interact. So the whole study took place outside. They had a whole bunch of fun activities like rock wall and 4 variations of ladders to climb on. Now, one of the things I liked about how they described the playground was for the schedule themselves, they had a number of these playground activities that were closed-ended, but they went to the trouble of taking open-ended activities by teaching the participants some sort of a routine related to those activities. So, for example, kicking soccer balls, they list, we taught them to just kick 2 soccer balls into a goal, or riding your bike on a very clear route, and once it's over, you're done with that. It's that was interesting. I've certainly seen picture activity schedules where folks have taught the children to use timers, and Higbee actually in his presentation had a really nice way to do the visuals of a timer. So instead of having it be, just 3 minutes and the kid figures out how to use the timer, which you could do for older students.
Yeah.
For the preschool students, they were just color-coded. So they'd have 3 red dots would be the 3 minutes. And you'd color-code your timer. You put red dots over the minute button.
Oh,
and then
smart.
the green one was go, or vice versa. But
Okay.
in any case, it was color-coded so that you knew which buttons to press instead of having to know your numbers.
Yeah.
Smart. You just need to know your colors.
That's true.
Or your shapes.
Well, whichever one is easiest, that's the one you're going to use.
Right.
But it would be hard to then add another element to the playground
Right.
of a timer.
It'd be doable, but I mean, it might take less time to teach a child to respond to a timer, even in that setting, than it would be to teach them routines related to playground activities. I would think.
Maybe. I don't know.
I've never
I mean,
done-
once you introduce the timer, then I'm immediately like, how can we get this back out?
Right.
It just seems so artificial.
Well, I think it's one of those things too that if you have the student, if they were to show that they would engage in this behavior of playing without the schedule, who cares about the timer? Or if they at least pick up a few of the activities that they seem to enjoy, and instead of playing one non-functional activity, they play the same 2, but at least functionally, at least there's opportunities for peer interaction, you may say, we don't really need this timer anymore.
Right.
Because they're moving through
Yeah.
activities, or they're more likely to move through activities. They don't need the schedule as much.
I like concrete beginning and end things.
Mm-hmm.
They're
So,
my favorite.
in this case, that's what they had, so that was helpful. Unlike some of our other studies, they did have a terminal reinforcer. They had a small snack, which was just sitting right next to the schedule for when the child
amazing.
was done. And they actually looked. I've never seen this done, but they actually looked at linking the number of activities in the schedule to the number of activities the child just participated in during baseline. So each child actually had a different size schedule. I've always
That's
just
fun.
done,
that's nice.
just do 5, because that's what they had in the original
Right.
study, or just do 1 or 2 or 3, depending on the student's
Right.
interest level, or
Yeah.
if you want to teach them the individual games. But, I've even stopped doing that because you learn the games you learn the basic activities by the graduated guidance. They rotated the schedule, so they didn't need to do a resequencing section in this. They just had a bunch of activities, and then they had a few other activities they used later on as a novel activities probe. So in this study, the researchers looked at both what were the different activities, did they engage in the schedule and engage in the activities, and then they also looked at engagement as well, which they had not done in the other
Yeah, that's fun.
in the other studies. They used non-concurrent multiple baseline design across the participants, and in terms of how they trained the students, they did similar to hide and seek. They did a picture location correspondence teaching to make sure they actually could go to where they were supposed to go on the schedules. They just gave them the go play cue when they started. And then they sort of moved through the following phases. They had a schedule probe where they just had the activity schedule present and provided no prompting. They then taught to use the schedule using graduated guidance as you would any picture schedule. They then looked at what happened when they probed the schedule with novel activities once the students had mastered the original schedules in that procedure. And then they did follow-up. So they assessed the skills 2 weeks after the study was over. They didn't use the schedules at all in between the 2 weeks either. So it was the first time the kids had seen them in the past 2 weeks.
I like that.
Yeah. So let's go to the graph. Now,
By the way, you're doing a great job.
oh, thanks, Jackie.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it. So they apparently did not use Velcro in this study because they had money to print the graphs on a full page. So that was good. And so you've got the 3 participants, and on the left y-axis you've got your number of activities, and then on the right y-axis you have the percentage of independently completed schedule components. And really across participants you saw some variability for 2 of the 3 participants in terms of the activities they'd engage in during baseline, but sometimes they'd engage in 1, sometimes they'd engage in 4. They did mention that Miles only played with 1, but he was more actively engaged with those activities. Like he would play that one activity, but he would play it for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Whereas the other 2 just hopped between activities, which I think is the phenomenon I see a lot, where you can get a child to play different things, but they play for about 2 seconds and then run to another thing and then run to another thing. So they, after baseline where they had no schedule, they did the probe with the schedule, and that didn't do anything. So they
changed nothing.
So they began teaching the children to use the schedule, and pretty quickly all the participants moved up and were pretty consistently using anywhere from 5 to 8 activities consistently. Their percentage of scheduled components were all very high. They were all above 80%. Most of them actually were 90 or close to 100% in many cases. When they returned to baseline and took out the schedule, responding dropped. They only did the one with withdrawal or return to baseline. So it's hard to say for Alvin and Dexter, who actually did complete a high number of activities, not higher than anything in baseline, but on the high end of their baseline. It's hard to say whether they might have been more consistent with engaging in more activities. So I actually would have liked to see what happened if they did another baseline. Did the number of activities sort of continue back to that variable drop, or did they stay up at 4 or 3 respectively, which would have been a change. It would have actually shown that they were engaged in more activities consistently than they had been, but we'll never know. And then when they returned to the teaching procedure and they had the schedules available, the participants all returned to their high rates and consistent number of activities. That held true when they added novel activities to the schedule, and they all continued at a very high percentage of independence and same number of activities after the 2-week follow-up. So they learned to use those schedules, and they continue to use those schedules without additional teaching trials.
Yeah. But you're right, they never did another return to baseline to see how they did with no schedule.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, they clearly learned to follow the schedule, and they could follow it when it was modified to include different activities, and they could follow it after a 2-week break, but we don't know what they were doing when the schedule wasn't there.
I mean, they engaged in some number of activities on the high end of their baseline, at least Alvin and Dexter. But again, maybe they would have engaged in more activities consistently.
Yeah.
And that would have been good to see.
This is reminding me of the video modeling literature, which is you can get great responding in the presence of the video model.
But not in its absence.
Yeah, and even when it's absence, but not anything else.
Yeah, there's no novel statements that emerge.
There's no
variability.
Generative production of new actions.
I wonder if they did multiple exemplar combined with this picture activity schedule, if you would see any difference.
I don't know. It's like that wasn't even the focus of this research.
Right, it wasn't. But I'm wondering if that, because that usually helps.
Yeah.
According to Stokes and Bear, 77.
Right.
Right?
Or maybe it could be, like they'd have a few pages with a choice.
Yeah.
Like, pick one of these 3 activities, and you decide what to do. And then, I don't know, I wonder if something like that would help.
I don't know if there's been research on using multiple or using choice within the context of the schedule. I know that was one of the modifications that Higbee in his presentation talked about, and that one's been really easy. I've taught a number of students to use choice making within the schedule. So they've got on one side of the schedule, they've got 3 different things they can play with, and then they pick the one they want, and then they put it down. And the kids all really have seemed to enjoy that. Again, whether or not they enjoy the choice because it makes the activity itself or it makes the completion of the schedule more reinforcing, therefore maybe they'd engage in some of those activities without as much schedule, or whether it's just one component of the discriminative stimulus that the schedule becomes, is hard to say. One of the interesting things, other than the fact that, it was super successful, the students all learned to engage in more activities on the playground, so that is great. But the other piece was that the students actually all knew how to use schedules, and it was a bit surprising that even with the knowledge of how to do schedules in a classroom, when presented with a schedule in a new setting, nothing. They didn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
Because you would think, well, they know how to do a schedule. We know that the schedules probably have some amount of stimulus control.
Not enough.
But I guess not even close to enough that in the playground setting they wouldn't follow it. I mean, maybe that the reinforcement that they get doing the schedule inside, it wasn't clear that they would get reinforced for playing outside. Outside is very different than inside. I don't know.
That makes sense, though, because I can do tons of training of picture activity schedules in the classroom, and kids are, like, super fluent and awesome doing them independently in the classroom, but as soon as you bring them in the home environment, barriers break down quite quickly.
Yeah. I can one-up you.
Well, the history.
Oh.
I can do a training on teaching adults how to use a picture activity schedule to use with students in a classroom. And then the second they're in a different classroom, responding falls off a cliff.
That's good. You did one-up me.
So I guess it's not that surprising that
Right?
the kids,
Once
the
we
kids
talk
couldn't
about
do
it,
it.
They were probably like, oh, hey, here's their schedule. And then they just left it on the bench and the kids ran off
Right.
to play. You know,
like, just kidding.
I'm not
Bleep
doing
that noise. I'm going to go play on these wood chips some more.
Exactly. Yeah.
The wood chips. There was probably a lot of competing reinforcers, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
The wood chips are highly reinforcing. You should put that in the picture activity schedule. Just like we can
Go play on the wood chips?
reinforce appropriate play with stereotypy. We can reinforce playground activity with wood chip throwing.
With wood chips, yeah.
Just
or you can make a little sensory bin with wood chips to bring inside.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Unless they're eating them.
Can't eat them. That's not good. No.
So, again, some of the limitations, it's a brief study. Would students who were just taught to use the schedule on the playground have learned to use the schedule on the playground? Do they need to have previous experience using a picture activity schedule? Which is interesting, but at the same time, I don't know that many people that jump from, man, these kids don't have any play skills. Let's do it in the most confusing and busy location possible to start. I don't know anyone who would do that,
Right.
but hey, I wonder what would happen. Everyone would probably hate the schedule because it was a pain to prompt, and no one would want to do it because recess is the kids' time.
And yeah, it's one thing to say in theory, oh, I want the kids to just be able to do whatever they want to on the playground and run around and be free. And it's easy to say that, really easy, and I'm like about to say it right now, but then I reflect on seeing a child with a disability on the playground and seeing how honestly stigmatizing it is for them to just be circling the playground, roaming the playground, throwing the wood chips in the air, not seeing the other kids, not functionally engaging with any of the equipment, and they stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's free time for them, but
it's not really.
It's not functional. And there are plenty of ways for them to get exercise while we're teaching them how to properly engage with the playground.
Right. Mm-hmm. And what you could do, too, is just break it up. Okay, the first 5 minutes you're going to teach an activity. Then they have 5 minutes of fun.
Yeah.
Where they can do something.
Definitely.
Then you have 5 minutes of activity. So then at least you're doing something.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see how that works in practice in different settings. Before we go on to the dissemination station, let's do our last code word of the evening, and that is croquet, the game, not the chicken dinner. CROQUET, croquet. So if you are interested in applying for CEs, that's your second keyword, croquet. Let's move into dissemination station.
We're
Nice.
here.
Nice.
I've perfected it over the years.
That's very good.
Thanks.
I guess the big area to look at is, as useful as picture activity schedules are, if you can't get rid of the visual of the schedule, are they worth continuing to use?
What I think would be interesting is if research looked at having a picture activity schedule and then transferring stimulus control to a word-based schedule, so it may be one page with just words on it. Because that's kind of what I use in my everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be, more socially appropriate for older kids, and you wouldn't have to get rid of it because everyone uses a list to kind of guide what they're doing in their lives.
Yeah. Has that research been done?
I don't think so.
Really?
I haven't seen it. Maybe.
In terms of just instead of using the picture activity schedule, the word-based schedule?
Yeah. So, like, transferring, you trained on
Right.
a picture activity schedule, and then the transfer of control to a word-based schedule. I know they've done word-based schedules, but I'm wondering if they've specifically
I actually don't know.
looked at that one. I haven't looked either, but I think that would be cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's how I always talk about it.
Me too.
Because it does seem so contrived to start with this, like cumbersome book.
3-ring binder.
Pictures and flipping all the
Construction.
pages, and you spend a lot of time just teaching how to navigate the schedule itself. Right? But that's what I always try to explain to parents, is that would be our end goal, is that we move it eventually to being a visual or, a list schedule, like all on one page, and then a word-based schedule, and then maybe just writing a list. It would be, which is what anyone does, like you said.
Right.
But I guess I didn't realize that maybe that isn't all combined
Right.
into one place.
But it could be.
Yeah. It probably should
That would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think not a lot of people, or as many as should, make accurate or useful to-do lists for themselves.
Right.
And I know a lot of the research related to productivity has to do with how do you write a to-do list. You have to have a to-do list. You have to use these systems. And this is for people who are functioning at a pretty high level in life, and they still need to have these systems in place. So when you look at it that way, the issue's less how do we get rid of these schedules that these children with autism need to use to function in these settings versus, well, other people without disabilities should probably use more schedules of some sort on their own. These aren't so strange or foreign a concept.
Right. Another thing that you could think about too is making it more applicable for like older kids. Maybe start with a picture activity schedule and then transfer it to like a phone. So you can do like a swipe model. I think there's some apps for picture activity schedules.
Oh yeah.
So make it more of a app module instead of the 3-ring binder. It's less clunky. It's more cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know there are several picture activity schedule apps, and they can get really complicated not complicated, but really complex and cool. And you can even embed video in there, so you pull up a page, and then if you need a visual reminder of what that part of the schedule means, you can click on the video, and it'll give you a model.
Which is kind of cool.
Really cool. Like your 3-ring binder cannot do that for you.
No.
For sure. And the ones I was seeing were for vocational tasks, too. So that's really appropriate for a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking right now. I just Google image picture activity schedules app, and I see a nighttime schedule, a countdown timer for a bathing schedule, a Monday morning, get bread, get knife, put bread in toaster, put jam on toaster, get dressed. Breakfast. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch.
Yeah.
They get real serious. Wednesday, it's like every hour. There's a little picture.
Oh, wow.
Look how serious that one is.
That's pretty busy.
Yeah.
I was trying to think about other areas in which you might use a picture schedule. And I felt like these were great extensions because they moved into some more complex behavior, like peer interaction and more complex play.
I'd be interested in seeing if you included either typically developing peers into the schedule themselves, whether that would be helpful in terms of teaching them peer mediation skills. So the typically developing peers don't need a schedule to play Don't Break the Ice, to play Connect 4, but understanding by being a part of that joint schedule what the individual with disability, with autism, is sort of using or what they're referring to. Would that be an avenue of fading some of the schedule and having the peer sort of pick up the slack of, these are the things they say, or these are things I can say to help them figure out what to do?
Yeah, maybe. That's kind of interesting.
I don't know. That'd be something to look at.
There's a lack of peer-mediated skills training. Overall, I think it's useful, and we should do more research on it.
I really like the ideas of fading it down to something that, like you could keep on your wrist or you could look at on your phone.
Right.
To me, like, this research is cool, but I'm left with that question, like, are you going to be able to move away? Because it's really just one big prompt, right?
The huge
binder. Huge visual discriminative stimulus that is apparently, based on all of these studies, required in order to produce the behavior. So how are you going to fade it out? Or how are you going to reduce it down? Like, that research seems to be the big elephant in the room when you look at all these studies. And they're really cool, and I'm sure you can expand and look at other types of more complex behavior with picture schedules too. And some of that research has been done, but if you still need to figure out how to fade it out and transfer that control to something smaller, to me, in order to really say that this is successful.
And maybe not fade it out altogether.
No.
But sometimes you might want to, like with the game one, you might want to.
Yeah.
Only because it's supposed to be spontaneous play.
Right. But, all that was really needed was, it's your turn to go pick, is all that page said. Right. And then they went over and picked from 4 different games.
Played.
Yeah. So that's pretty
You could even
subtle.
transfer that to a wall.
You could, or to the peer.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, after you took your turn, then you would say, it's your turn to pick to your friend. And both of you would do that at the end of your turn. Maybe that would be all that was needed.
Until you play forever. Right? It's your turn to play. Now it's your turn to play. We're going to play forever, everyone. 7 days later. There'd have to be an end cap. Right. 7 days later. They're like, I'm so tired.
I know. But it's your turn to play. Get out, don't break the ice again.
That's funny.
It's nice to know how useful picture activity schedules can be, and I hope we continue to see fun extensions of their use in different settings going forward. Jackie, did you have something you wanted to share?
Sure, yeah. I wanted to share that if you guys are interested in a career in behavior analysis, you should check out Regis College for a master's in behavior analysis. Some of my graduate students and I and our director, Dr. Lauren Beaulieu, are going to Reykjavik, Iceland this week and doing our mission trip. Yeah, to work with...
Mission trip.
That's what we have to call it, our mission trip. It's not an academic trip, it's a mission trip. It's a service trip. Because they don't get academic credit. They just get experience to work with the Department of Early Child Care in local preschools because they have limited resources in the areas of BCBAs. So we're pretty jazzed. And you could go on that trip too if you want to sign up. We have rolling admission for the fall 2016.
Great. Or a similar trip.
Or a similar trip, yeah.
Yeah. Come
on board.
All right. Well, I don't have a picture activity schedule to remind me of what I'm supposed to plug, but I'll do my best from memory. We hope you very much enjoyed our show. If you would please leave us a review on iTunes. We would always love that. You can subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher or on Google Play now, or Google Podcasts, whatever they're calling it. You can find us online at Facebook, at ABA Inside Track. You can find us on Twitter. We can be emailed at any time at abainsidetrack@gmail.com. I think that's everything. Oh, if you want CEs, you can apply for those for this website with your secret code words. There are instructions on the website, but recently noticed that PayPal has changed their format, so the way you could put in your code words now no longer works. So I've changed the button on the website, so please give that a try, where you can just put the code words right in before you click the PayPal link. You can also just email us at abainsidetrack@gmail.com with the information, and we'll get everything to you. Don't worry.
Good thing Rob's around.
I know.
I try my best. I wish I'd come up with that sooner. I kept telling everyone, it's on the website, everyone. Just look for the link. And then I looked today and said, oh, no, it is not. It's my bad. I used the data of everyone emailing me and saying, hey, there's no button to change my own behavior.
Good job, Rob.
Thanks. We'll be back next week with a preview episode to describe our next exciting topic. But until then, thanks to both of you for being here. And we'll see everyone next week. But until then, keep responding. Bye.
Check you later.